Mexico, countries across the world, and say, I'm submitting these forms, I'm waiting in line. Do you mean if I would have just gone there legally, I get a better deal or easier to get in? That's wrong. We cannot encourage that. You have to respect the rule of law. With the kids, it's a different situation.
All right, staying on the subject of immigration and border security. Now, last night you repeatedly said that we must fix the border first, and you mentioned that already this evening. When you say fix the border, exactly how long do you think that would take, and what exactly would be the means that you would use?
Well, I thought we just went over that, talking about the sensors and so on and so forth. The time, I don't know. I would once again ask the Secretary of Homeland Security, that would be in their domain. They then work through it, certify, and then Congress makes that decision whether or not they agree that the border is now secure.
So is there a definition for you of what the secure border be? Like how many people were coming through, or would it be just flat out 0 people coming in?
You know, once again, I leave that up to the Secretary of Homeland Security and then submit that to Congress. They have the expertise, and that's, Congress is the will of the people. That's the body of the people. They can have that open argument, debate in the House, and make that decision.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, we're going to move on to jobs. We're going to bring down Monica Ambos. Can I ask the question, Monica?
Hi, Monica.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
What are your proposals to bring more diversified job opportunities to the Coachella Valley?
Well, we need to create jobs in Coachella Valley, and the congressional district that I'm running in represents areas on the other side of the mountain, Hemet, San Luciano, Banning, Beaumont, Costa Mesa, Calamasa, not that one. We need to bring jobs everywhere, I believe, particularly to California. And the way you do that is, and this is where I disagree with my opponent, we have to roll back some of these regulations. There are duplication of regulations and permitting processes and so on that have just become overwhelming. Our taxes are too high, and businesses will leave. They have left California. They're choosing not to come here to produce because of the taxes and regulations. So sensible regulations, absolutely. But yet, for the most part, the free enterprise, free market system works. It's worked well for 250 plus years here. It's created the greatest economic engine in the history of the world, lifted millions out of poverty. It works. We just have to allow it to work. So government getting in the way and complicating the process to start a new business, that's detrimental. So you have to have, once again, sensible regulations. But we have gone overboard here in California. Cap and trade is a perfect example, where you're capping emissions on a particular industries and then giving more or less golden tickets to the industry that you like, and they have to buy them from them. It becomes very complicated. Government's right in the middle of it, and it's driving jobs out of the area. So what will happen is, now my opponent and President Obama would like to have cap and trade for the rest of the nation, and I think that's a disaster. That's going to harm our economy. There's no doubt about it. So once again, it's just simply a matter of allowing the free market, free enterprise system to work.
All right, thank you, sir. Staying with jobs, Mr. Newman.
We have a brain drain in Coachella Valley where some of our best and brightest high school students leave for college elsewhere and don't come back. What can we do to keep the bright people here?
Well, if you create like this college right here, it's a matter of, a lot of it's a matter of your population center, of how many people do you have to create the critical mass to bring a business here, and so on and so forth. And we're growing and we're maturing as the size of an area, and as we will, more businesses will come here. But obviously, we've been centered on ag and hospitality for most of the time. With that, if you have, I'm a big believer in career technical education. We've lost a lot of that in our high schools. When I went to high school, you went there was a full metal shop, full wood shop, auto shop, drafting. I remember all that. And those were trades where you could move into a job out of high school. So the dropout rate is just a killer. The higher the dropout rate, it's not good. So what you want to do is have kids that are in the 9th, 10th, 11th grade, where it's critical that they stay in school. See, there's a pathway to a job, pathway to a future, to where I may not go to a 4-year college, but I can have a job and a career. And that's what we're missing, because only about 20% of the people get a 4-year degree, kids out of high school. So there's an 80% that we have to focus on. So career technical education is vital, so they can see that if I do this, there's a path to a job. I was talking to these folks that have this business up in another state, and I'm hoping to bring them down here, where they're taking computer code, and they're saying, you don't need a 4-year computer science degree to write code. They're doing it about, I can't remember, 8 months or less than a year, I believe. They're bringing them in there, they're teaching them to write code, and they have jobs instantly getting out of that. It's more or less a trade school for the modern age. And I think that's brilliant. So if we can bring that down here, train people coming out of high school that want to just write code, they're not going to go to a 4-year degree, match them to businesses, and that's how you'll draw businesses. Then if you have a good supply of kids writing code coming out of this trade school, you'll bring in the next Google or whatever it might be that wants to write code. So I think those kind of things are what we have to look at. Once we hear career technical education is changing, and we have to be cognizant of that. And it has to be a deliberate effort between the school districts, the high schools, the colleges. Well, if I can take a little bit more time here, since my opponent gave me his time.
Take all the time you like.
I'm in the state assembly now, and what we've done is reconfigured how money gets to schools. Prior to, there was 30 or 40 or 50 different silos of funding from Sacramento down to the school district. So what's happened now, Governor Brown has this new funding formula that collapses all these categoricals. So that means it's one big chunk of money that goes to the school district. Well, that's good. I believe a lot of that's good, but the negative part, the downside of that, career technical education was one of those silos of funding. Now you collapse that in to everything else, I'm worried that that's going to be first on the chopping block, because historically it has been. That's why it's left a lot of high schools, because it wasn't protected funding. That's why it became a categorical. And so now what happens in the new school districts, a second part that Governor Brown did, he said our pension fund is depleted. The teacher's pension fund is way underfunded, so we have to kick in more for the retirement for teachers. So he said, you school districts will now take that over. You're going to have to fund that pension problem. So the new school districts have a chunk of money, and they have a new obligation to defend those pensions. I'm worried that career tech, once again, will be first on the chopping block. And I work with my fellow Democrat. I'm on the Education Finance Subcommittee of the budget, and we work to get career tech a 2-year reprieve, basically, where it's protected for 2 years, but after that, it goes into the general budget. I'm hoping that somehow we can that survives. And that's why I've had 2 town hall meetings about it, to say, go to your local school district, talk about, have the discussions, and make your local school board will be making these decisions. So please make your voices heard. Thank you.
Thank you. We move to government spending and budget now, and I'm pretty sure I know how you're going to answer this question, but it was submitted, so we're going to ask it anyways. To reduce the deficit, do you think we should raise taxes or cut spending?
Well, I would choose the latter.
Yeah.
Cutting spending. Folks, we have, as I mentioned, an $18 trillion debt. It's just overwhelming. 55,000, it goes up every day for each person. It's too much. We have to cut spending. It's not easy. I get that. But we have to do it. We cannot tax our way out of this. Or just as bad, we cannot continue to sell debt bonds to get out of this. That will end badly. Nobody really knows how, but just logic says you cannot carry this size of a debt forever. Something's got to give. So we got to cut back this spending. Like I said, it's not easy. However, I read a lot of materials and read through committee reports. The Congressional Budget Office said there's $200 billion a year. It's a lot of money. $200 billion a year that is wasted money. Basically, duplication and unnecessary spending every year in the budget. First bill I'd write as congressman is to introduce that and say, cut that $200 billion. That's low-hanging fruit. We're obligated, whether you're Democrat or Republican, to be as frugal as possible with taxpayer money. So let's get after the waste first, and then look at other areas. There's so many areas you can reform. I saw it on the state side, it's even more on the federal side. Government has a tendency to just keep doing things the way they've been doing it forever. And it grows, and the bureaucracy grows, and it's not nefarious by anybody in the bureaucracy. It just happens. You have to trim that back. You have to constantly find a new way to do things. Private business, it occurs because you have competitors. If you're a business that gets large, you're going to have duplication, maybe too many mid-level managers or whatever it might be. Who knows? You get a little bit comfortable and fat. Where your competitor says, well, I can do what you're doing for cheaper because I need 10 less employees. So also they come in and do it. You have to reconfigure what you're doing. And that's a natural element that occurs in the private sector. It does not occur in the public sector. So we have to be vigilant. That's why you have to have members of Congress that are willing to sit through this and go through it. It takes a while, it takes hard work, but we have to do that.
All right, thank you, sir. We move now to foreign policy. Mr. Newman. Oh, excuse me. Actually, Paul Oliaro was going to ask the question for us, moving to foreign policy.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My question is, I would like you to spell out, and as specifically as you can, your policies and your approaches to addressing the conflicts we face in the Middle East.
Thank you. The conflict in the Middle East, I believe right now, I think you have to back up. Just take a step back and say, how did we get here? When President Obama, when he got elected, I don't know if you remember this, when he got elected, he received the Nobel Peace Prize. He hadn't done anything. He received the Nobel Peace Prize because the world community thought, this guy's different, special, he's going to get us out of war. And so he did. He said, I'm going to withdraw from Afghanistan and Iraq. That's what I'm going to do. And he thought the United Nations or whomever is going to come in, there's going to be no war, there's going to be peace. Because I really believe that President Obama thinks America has done things they shouldn't have done maybe in the past, been kind of a colonial power. He said, that's not us, we have to step back. And I fundamentally disagree with that because America is a good country. It's a great country. We're not perfect, but we do good. We didn't, after World War II, we didn't invade and take over countries and say, now this is the USA. No, we gave them money to rebuild. That's unique as a country. So when President Obama decided to pull back, particularly in the Middle East and Iraq, where he didn't work hard enough to get a status force agreement, meaning to leave the right forces in Iraq to protect that new government, we pulled out, and what happened? It collapsed. Chaos ensued. When you withdraw, there's a vacuum of power, and who fills that vacuum? Chaos. People with the bigger gun, the people that are more aggressive, the bad people, and that's what's happened in the Middle East. So with Syria, remember Syria, he drew a line in the sand. He said to President Assad, do not cross this line. What was that line? That line was using chemical weapons on your own people. Do not do that. We will act if you do. So what did President Assad do? He used chemical weapons on his own people. What did President Obama do? Nothing. Actually worse. He outsourced his foreign policy to Vladimir Putin. Russian president said, and Vladimir Putin says, I got this handled, don't worry, I'll deal with Syria. So he did. So Syria said, sure, I'll give up some of the chemical weapons. In the meantime, he's slaughtering his own people. So the rest of the nation, or the rest of the world watched that and said, wow, President Obama, he really is withdrawing. American superpower, maybe he's not here. So what did Vladimir Putin do? He walked into Crimea, took that, going into the Ukraine.
We provoked that.
So what's happening in the Middle East? It's chaos. It's total chaos. So now he's going back in to correct what he should have done in the first place, not have left, or when Syria acted, he should have acted then to say, I meant what I said. That would have been a signal to people. But now, it's a mess. You go and you bomb people. We're training people. When he says no boots on the ground, by the way, there's 1,200 Marines that were just dispatched to Kuwait for training. We have military personnel over there. So he said, what are we going to do? We're going to train these people? These people, they change sides constantly. I mean, they're in survival mode. You don't think if somebody comes up and offers them a good deal 6 months later, change sides? You know, what are we doing here? That's the problem. That's the argument I have with President Obama and my opponent. We got to have a strategy. Congress should not have left and adjourned for the year while there's literally a war brewing out there. We're sending Americans over there, and they signed some bill, some signature say, yeah, do this, and left. They should be back there debating this every day. It's an evolving situation. It's very serious to send our men and women in harm's way. That's the most serious thing we can do. They should be back there right now debating it. So that's my answer, long-winded answer, but we have to work through it. And I wish Congress was there today debating it.
Leon Panetta said in his book that the war against terrorists could last 30 years. Do you think it is possible to eliminate the threat of terrorists sooner than that, and how would you propose we do it?
And Leon Panetta is former Secretary of Defense, former CIA director, if I remember correctly, Democrat. he said the same thing about President Obama. He said President Obama made a big mistake with Syria. And he said that's what we're seeing today as a result of that. So it's not just me saying this, it's Leon Panetta, it's Henry Kissinger, it's Hillary Clinton, Senator Mendoza, head of the Foreign Relations Committee, Senate Democrat, he's saying this. So how long does it take to defeat terrorism? I don't know. I don't know. Mr. Panetta certainly knows more than I do. 30 years is probably an educated guess, but I really don't know how long it'll take. But what I do know is they're not going to stop. They are fighting for state survival. They're fighting for power. And so they're going to continue, and that's why we can't control everything, but one thing we should control is our borders and our country. Make sure our country is safe. That's our job. Our nation has to be protected. So make sure our borders are safe, our country is safe, people coming in, let's check them. Going back to your immigration question, almost 40% of the people that are here, undocumented people, are overstays on their visa. We don't have a way to track those folks down of who have overstayed their visa. We have to get serious about our immigration policy in many different ways. But I can't answer your question directly, how long it'll take, I don't know.
Any concern as a representative of the people of troops in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Syria, virtually indefinitely, which is sort of what Mr. Panetta was saying, is we don't know how or when we will ever be able to get out. You have 7 kids. If they were in the military, would you be concerned about deploying them overseas?
Absolutely. But once again, this is a volunteer military. If they choose to go, they know what they're getting into when they sign up. And so how long we will have those folks there, I would leave that up to the generals. The office of the president should be going to, they have to make those decisions. We've been in Korea now 60 years. So I don't know how long they'll be there, but the point is we should be there as long as it takes to keep America safe.
Fair enough. A little more mundane topic. Let's talk about foreign trade a little bit. What is your position on that, and how do you think we can, or what can we do to make it most beneficial for all Americans?
I believe in free trade, fair trade as well, but we're a trading nation. We're a mature trading nation. Jobs that work in the exporting industry are 25 to 30% higher than other jobs. It's good money. Southern California, largest port, LA port, a lot of jobs are connected to trade. As they move goods from the port to the rest of the nation to come to the Inland Empire, logistics industry is one of the industries of the future for the area. So trade, we are a trading nation. Now we have to be vigilant and make sure our trade deals are good deals as fair as they can possibly be. There's probably not perfect deals, you try to get there, but you want the best deal possible. But we should be trading as much as possible. We win when we're trading. That's just a fact. You want to have the old economics term of the advantage. Now I can't remember the name of it. When you have the competitive advantage, you drop what you're not good at. So when people were making horse and buggies when the car was created, you quit making those, you make the car. So you want capital money to move to the areas that's going to be your best at doing. And so whatever industry you're best at doing, that's where you want the capital to go to. If you're not good at making shoes anymore, another country is, you let that go, you go to the next product. And so that's what trading does. And we've been winning at it for years, and I believe we will continue to win when we trade.
All right, well that concludes the question portion of the evening. You have 2 minutes, or as long as you feel like going, for a closing statement.
That's it? I was just warming up. Oh my goodness, all right. Well, thank you.
Yeah, take your time.
In 1994, President Clinton declared the era of big government is over. President Obama and Congressman Ruiz brought it back, and they have doubled down. Our government is larger than ever. The national debt has almost doubled during Obama's presidency, and Ruiz still supports more spending. It's time for change. 2 years ago, my opponent promised to balance the budget and cut spending, but he voted to increase spending and raise the national debt 3 times. While in Washington, he has voted with President Obama's agenda 90% of the time. During the past 2 years, we've seen scandals like the Veterans Administration, the IRS, the failed promises of Obamacare, and the Benghazi cover-up. Under Ruiz and Obama, our country is weaker. Look at the rise of ISIS, the arrogance of leaders such as Putin, and a total lack of a clear foreign policy. It's time for change. Recently, President Obama said, "I am not on the ballot this fall, but make no mistake, every single one of my policies are on the ballot." He is right, and that's why I will be a check and balance on President Obama. American ingenuity, hard work, and her competitive spirit will create jobs and raise wages. Free enterprise has made us the greatest nation on earth. Ultimately, a smaller government means a bigger paycheck for you. That's why I'm running for Congress. I'd be honored to have your vote. Thank you very much for having me here tonight.
Well, I understand. Thank you very much, sir.